Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Shri Radha Govardhana Bhagwan Ki, Krishna Balram Bhagwan Ki, Giriraj Maharaj Ki, Narsinghadev Bhagwan Ki, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana Bhagwan Ki, Gauranitai Bhagwan Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaur Premanandi. So reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse 39. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Narayanam Namaskrityam Narachaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse 39. Please repeat after me. Krishna prasada sumukham sprihanya dhama Snehavaloka kalaya hirdi samsprishantam Shame Prithav Urasi Shobhitaya Shriya Swas. Chudamanim Subhagayantam Ivatmadishnam. Kritsna Prashada Sumukham Sprihanya Dhama. Sneha Valoka Kalaya Hirti Samsprishantam. Shame Prithav Urasi Shobhitaya Shriya Swas. Chudamanim Shubhagayantam Ivatmadhishnam. Prabhus? Chudamanim Subhagayantam Ivatmadhishnam. Chudamanim Subhagayantam Ivatmadhishnam. Krishna Prasada Sumukham Spriyanaya Dhama. Sneha Valoka Kalaya Hirti Samsprishantam. Shame Prithav Urasi Shobhitaya Shriya Swas. Chudamanim Subhagayantam Ivatmadhishnam. Krishna Prasada. Blessing everyone. Sumukham, auspicious face. Sprihanya, desirable. Dhamma, shelter. Sneha, affection. Avaloka, looking upon. Kalaya, by expansion. Hirdi, within the heart. Samsprishantam, touching. Shame, unto the Lord with blackish color. Pritau, broad. Urasi, chest. Shobhitaya, being decorated. Shriya, goddess of fortune. Swaha, heavenly planets. Chudamanim, summit. Subhagayan, tam, spreading good fortune. For Eva, like. Atma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Disyam, abode. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So please also repeat the translation after me. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. Purport. So it's a long purport. I think what I might do is break it up a little and speak a little in the middle of it as we are going along. So when the Lord came, he was pleased with everyone. Therefore it is stated here, Kritsna Prasada Sumukham. The Lord knew that even the offensive doormen were his pure devotees, although by chance they committed an offense at the feet of other devotees. To commit an offense against a devotee is very dangerous in devotional service. Lord Caitanya therefore said that an offense to a devotee is just like a mad elephant run loose. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it tramples all over the plants. Similarly, an offense unto the feet of a pure devotee murders one's position in devotional service. So, where we are up to now is this part of the story, just to bring everybody, put the verse in context. So we are at this part of the Bhagavatam where what is happening is that the four Kumaras, dear devotees of the Lord, and the four sons of Lord Brahma, the four Kumaras who look like little children, 5-year-old children, they are trying to enter the Vaikuntha planets and see Lord Vishnu. And they have passed through many gates, and then they have been stopped at about the 6th or 7th gate by the doorkeepers, by the two doorkeepers. And what's happened is that the four Kumaras have gotten angry, they've gotten upset, and they've become upset at not being able to go further and see their beloved, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's described their eyes turned red. And so they had an argument with the two doorkeepers. And then as a result, they ended up cursing the doorkeepers. And before things could escalate further, before things could get worse, and before thank you. So Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, he didn't want to see his pure devotees, the two doorkeepers who are described as pure devotees. He didn't want them to be vanquished forever, to be lost forever. So before they could be cursed further by the four Kumaras, he quickly came. So this is where we are up to now. So this is the Lord in verse 39, and he has come to the door, to where the argument is happening between the 4 Kumaras and the 2 doorkeepers. So he is being described, and very nicely we are being told that he is the reservoir of all pleasure. We know when we chant the Maha Mantra that the word Rama refers to the reservoir of all pleasure. That's what that means. So Hare means energy of the Lord, or Srimati Radharani. Krishna means all attractive. Rama means the reservoir of all pleasure. And when we put the whole Maha Mantra together, it also means, dear energy of the Lord, dear Lord, please engage me in your transcendental loving devotional service. So, and that the Lord's auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction. Just as when the sun comes out, it shines everywhere equally. So when the Lord is present, just like the deity is present over here, Krishna is present. And when we come to see the deity, he is equally present for everyone. So in the same way the Lord is present, his presence is meant for everyone's benediction. He is not partial, he is equal to everyone. And it's described that the Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish. We knew that he is blackish in color, like a bluish black rain cloud, a fresh rain cloud. And that the chest is broad and is the resting place of the goddess of fortune. And that he glorifies the entire spiritual world, and this is explained later in the purport. So, that by his presence, he is spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world, and we can actually also relate that to ourselves, that by the Lord's presence in the form of the deity, in the form of the holy name, that we get a taste. If we are practicing sincerely, we get a taste of what the spiritual world is like from the descriptions in the scriptures. So just like the deity of the Lord, or the form of the Lord in this purport, he's representing the entire spiritual world. So in the same way, like the entire spiritual world is present in the holy name, and it's just a matter of accessing it. So we get a little taste, we get a little sensation of what it's like. So this is where we are up to, that the Lord has arrived at the door of Vaikuntha, and he knew that the doormen had been offensive, but at the same time they were his pure devotees, and they had committed an offense by somehow or the other at the lotus feet of the 4 Kumaras. And then the purport is explaining that an offense to a devotee, against a devotee, is very, very dangerous. And so it's been compared to a mad elephant, the mad elephant offense, which most of us are familiar with, that when a mad elephant is let loose, then it wreaks havoc, especially in a garden. Like everything is destroyed and uprooted, and it's totally trampled upon and like uprooted by the elephant's trunk. So everything is totally destroyed. So by committing the first offense against the holy name, which is to blaspheme or criticize a devotee who has dedicated their life to serving the Lord, then what happens is that we commit the mad elephant offense, and we basically completely uproot our devotional creepers. And so it's actually described here as that a devotee murders one's position in devotional service. So that's pretty intense. And how we can understand that is basically our entire spiritual lives and all the spiritual potency and merit that we have gained with years and years of sadhana and devotional practice, that all of that basically goes down the drain. It's that first offense of offending a devotee is that powerful. So an example from the scriptures of Mother Sachi who seemingly offended Advaita Acharya. And although Advaita Acharya, he didn't personally take any offense, but Lord Chaitanya took offense on behalf of Advaita Acharya. And the offender, the so-called offender, was his own mother, Sachimata. And so when Lord Chaitanya was giving out love of Godhead freely to everybody, he didn't give it out to Sachimata. And all the devotees present asked him, and he said, no, she's offended, my devotee. And so what ended up happening is Sachimata had to take forgiveness from Advaita Acharya, who wasn't going to accept her taking forgiveness. So the Lord arranged so that Advaita Acharya was unconscious when Sachimata came and touched his feet. And so we can see that even if one is very, very elevated and Krishna's mother, Lord Chaitanya's mother, that by causing an offense against a devotee, she was kept from receiving love of Godhead, and the same can happen to us. The same will happen to us. No matter how many years we practice for, if we are offensive, we will not taste the fruit of love of Godhead. And our spiritual progress will be slow, really slow. So to protect against this first offense, to protect our spiritual lives, our spiritual creepers against this first offense is immensely, immensely important. And a little while ago, I personally had a realization that I'd been pretty critical, so far, and yet I was still somehow practicing, and I realized the kindness of Krishna, that how magnanimous Krishna is, that even though I'd offended people, looking back. From now, I can see, oh my goodness, I was so critical. I was so offensive. How could I still be chanting? And then I realized that Krishna is really very, very kind. Radharani is very kind, that somehow they haven't kicked me away. Somehow I'm still here trying to chant and trying to. So that was just a little example. So in retrospect, I could see myself hopefully making a little bit of advancement and seeing that I'd not been very nice before. So actually just to elaborate on that point a little, so when somebody is an offender, Krishna does give them time, and he does give them chances, and it's usually about 3 chances or so, and then after that, you're out of the game, just like in cricket or something. So when you go out of the game, what that means is Krishna puts you away, takes you away from the association of devotees. So just like one has to go to prison. So in a similar way, the person is supposed to be put away for some time, or Krishna makes an arrangement somehow that the offender goes away and hopefully reforms. The greatest, so what Lord Vishnu here, what he was trying to avoid, and what the 2 doorkeepers were trying to avoid, was the greatest, what is also described in the Bhagavad Gita as the greatest fear. And this greatest fear is going down so low in the species of life that you forget the Lord. So the greatest fear is forgetfulness of the Lord. That if we so Jay and Vijay, the doorkeepers, knew that they're going to now come into the material world, and the material world is like the lower realms of creation, and in the lower realms, ignorance is thicker, whereas the higher we go, knowledge and light and everything that is transcendental becomes more and more apparent. So ignorance is very thick in the material world. And so they were afraid, and they begged not to forget the Supreme Lord. So that's the greatest fear, and in the Bhagavad Gita this is also described. So that is the worst thing that can happen to us, is that if we become so offensive, we can actually lose all taste and forget the Lord. And that's then we basically sink lower and lower and lower to the hellish planets, and then it's a long track back up, eventually through evolution. Okay, so this is what happens when a devotee is offended, and the only cure is to go and seek personally forgiveness from the devotee. However, on the part of the Lord, at this point in time, in this pastime, on the part of the Lord there was no offended mood, because he does not accept any offense created by his sincere devotee. But a devotee should be very cautious of committing offenses at the feet of another devotee. The Lord, being equal to all and being especially inclined to his devotee, looked as mercifully at the offenders as at the offended. This attitude of the Lord was due to his unlimited quantity of transcendental qualities. His cheerful attitude towards the devotees was so pleasing and heart-touching that his very smile was attractive for them. That attraction was glorious, not only for all the higher planets of this material world, but beyond, for the spiritual world also. Generally, a human being has no idea of what the constitutional position is in the higher material planets, which are far better constituted in regard to all paraphernalia. Yet the Vaikuntha planet is so pleasing and so celestial that it is compared to the middle jewel or locket in a necklace of jewels. So the equality of the Lord is being explained, and also the fact that Krishna, doesn't take offense himself. He doesn't get offended himself easily. And that if a devotee is sincere and trying, that he forgives or overlooks the offense because he can see the sincerity. So many times what we see is just all the mistakes that somebody is making, and we become judgmental, and we see how come they're still in a higher position or still a devotee, and how come they're still coming to the temple. But what Krishna is seeing is what we can't see, which is the sincerity in the heart. And so Krishna is giving them time and chances to reform. Because this material world, as we know, is described in the scriptures as a prison house. And in the prison, what happens is prisoners go to get reformed, to get corrected, to then come out a better person. So we are supposed to be doing that. We are supposed to be fixing ourselves up very firmly and purifying our existence by devotional service. So Krishna looked at both the offender and the offended equally with that nice smiling face, Sumukha. And this is because he has got unlimited compassion and unlimited transcendental qualities. So for us it can be hard to understand, but one little way of understanding is that, like what I'll try to explain with a little example. So is that the Lord is absolute, that he is absolute, that whatever you take to him, like he will purify that. Whether it's good or bad, he'll purify that. So if somebody has desires that are not in keeping with the 4 regulative principles, for example, and we sincerely put that before the Lord. We're trying in our spiritual lives, and we put that before the Lord. He will take that and he will purify it. So he'll either take away the desire altogether, or give us a favorable way that is conducive to our spiritual lives to fulfill that desire. So I could think of one example from the scriptures, and I should also give one example practically. So say we really like prasadam, food a bit too much. We like food too much, and to the point of eating until we get sick, which is the situation for most of us. We all eat things that we're not supposed to eat, even though we know it's going to make us sick. And then Krishna gives us the opportunity to make it prasadam, and automatically takes away a few things that we shouldn't be having at all. So if we stick within that guideline and we try to follow that guideline more and more, we become more and more purified. just a rough example. An example from the scriptures also is this example of Kubja. Kubja was a hunchback lady in Krishna's pastimes, and she didn't look pretty. She actually looked quite ugly. And she had this desire to have an intimate relationship with the Lord. And the Lord was, of course, Krishna, a Kshatriya king at that time. And, if we look at it externally, we see, oh, that's actually an illicit desire. But Krishna took that and purified that. And then, so anything that we can think of that is nasty, if we take it to Krishna, he purifies it. So he's absolute in that sense. So it doesn't mean that we deliberately go and do horrible things and break the regulative principles. Not like that, but it's, if we have, and we all do have seeds of karma, we all do have desires that are not favorable, but all of that can, as we come to Krishna consciousness and we start practicing very, very quickly, things get purified and things get cut off, and we end up not being tormented by those desires. So also the Lord's smile, it's important to say that the Lord's smile is enough to touch the very core of the heart and to reciprocate with his devotees, and that the Lord doesn't really, that's like more than enough. We don't really, just like the 5-year-old Dhruva Maharaj, who was really after like a planet of his, like he was after a whole kingdom that was bigger than his father's, and he did a lot of austerity to achieve that goal. But as soon as he saw Vishnu in front of him, he didn't have any other goal, he didn't want anything more at all. So in the same way, the gopis, they had given Krishna everything, like coming out in the middle of the night and completely severing all ties with their relatives. And what did Krishna offer them in exchange? He said that I actually don't have anything greater than your gift, and all I can give you back is, please be satisfied in your own gift that you have given me. But that was more than enough for the gopis. Like they didn't need any other external thing back from Krishna. So in that way we can understand that when the Lord smiles, that's enough. Like we will be entirely satisfied. It's not that we'll be left wanting. It touches the very core of the heart. And then in this verse, the words Sprihanya Dhamma indicate that the Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure, because he has all the transcendental qualities. Although only some of those are aspired for by the persons who hanker after the pleasure of merging in the impersonal Brahman, there are other aspirants who want to associate with the Lord personally as his servants. The Lord is so kind that he gives shelter to everyone, both impersonalists and devotees. He gives shelter to the impersonalists in his impersonal Brahman effulgence, whereas he gives shelter to the devotees in his personal abodes known as Vaikuntha Lokas. He is especially inclined to his devotee. He touches the core of the heart of the devotee simply by smiling and glancing over him. The Lord is always served in the Vaikuntha Loka by many hundreds and hundreds of goddesses of fortune, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam. In this material world, one is glorified if he is favored even a pinch by the goddess of fortune. So we can simply imagine how glorified is the kingdom of God in the spiritual world, where many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune engage in the direct service of the Lord. Another feature of this verse is that it openly declares where the Vaikuntha Lokas are situated. They are situated as the summit of all the heavenly planets which are above the sun globe, at the upper limit of the universe, and are known as Satya Loka or Brahma Loka. The spiritual world is situated beyond the universe. Therefore it is stated here that the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, is the summit of all planetary systems. So firstly, it's being said that when we are here in this material world, that it can be hard for us to understand how wonderful the spiritual world is, and that as the planetary systems get higher, so we are in Martya Lok, the Earth planet, which is, so there are 14 planetary systems in this material creation, so we are like in the middle section. And as we go higher and higher, there's the heavenly planets, still all within material creation. And the heavenly planets, we can understand heaven, how wonderful it is, how beautiful it is, and how much more enjoyment there is there. And then, on top of all of that, the spirit, so after the material world, when we get to the spiritual world, it's described here that we don't really have an idea of our constitutional position quite often, and it can be hard to understand that how wonderful everything is there, and that the Vaikuntha Loka planets are so pleasing and so celestial that it's compared to like the main locket in a necklace. So usually the main locket, just like here in this garland, like the main locket, that's probably a bit bigger and it's supposed to be more special. So like that, if you're wearing a necklace, the main locket, so that looks better, that looks more attractive, bigger. So that's what Vaikuntha is being described as, that it's like the main crest jewel. And that the Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. He has all the transcendental qualities. So Krishna and Lord Vishnu, they're described as having 64 qualities. Krishna has 4 more, of course, which are the extra 4. And that because he is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities, this is the words Sprihana Dhamma is used for this. And that there are all kinds of people in this world. Some of them are impersonalists who do not believe that the Lord is a person and has a personal feature. They believe that there is just an impersonal light, and that at the end of that this life they'll merge into that light, and that's it. Everything will be null and void. So the Lord does give them shelter in His Brahma Jyoti, and then there are people who are personalists, like Vaishnavas, like devotees, who are trying to associate with the Lord personally and who are trying to serve the Lord. So then it's being described like the ladder, and what our ultimate destination will be depending on our mood. So if we are impersonalists, we'll end up in the Brahma Jyoti, and then after actually from the Brahma Jyoti, then okay, actually I won't go there. So then when one is a personal devotee of the Lord, it depends on the mood, whether it is awe and reverence or whether it is servitude, intimate servitude. Right in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, actually Prabhupada says, he tells us that we can associate with the Lord in 5 different relationships. And at this point in time, we are all just meant to be serving and serving and serving. And then ultimately, if we are fortunate and if our spiritual lives achieve success, we will get an understanding naturally in time to come where our inclination is and in what mood we are seeing the Lord, which we don't have to artificially put on. Like some people see the Lord as a child and relate to Him in a parental attitude. Some see Him as an equal, as a friend, and some as a servant, and some as a lover, as a paramour. So, which we don't have to artificially put on. But this will come naturally with time, just like a river flows to the sea. Naturally, it will happen. So, and now it's being said that, it's hard for us to actually get an idea of this from here. And it is described that the Lord is reciprocating with each of us according to our mood and according to our desires. So for a devotee who is serving the Lord, he is especially inclined to that devotee who is personally serving Him, compared to an impersonalist. So in terms of destination, the impersonalist ends up in the Brahma Jyoti. The one with awe and reverence ends up in the Vaikuntha planets. The one with personal bhava, personal servitude ends up in Goloka Vrindavan. So, and personally associates with the Lord in that way. So that's the destination of the different moods. And that, then what is being described in this purport is that we can try to understand how wonderful the spiritual world is and Vaikuntha planets are, because in this world, if somebody is rich, even has a little bit of fortune, good fortune, then they're very attractive. Most people find them very attractive. This isn't artificial, actually. Krishna is described as being Aishwarasya Samagrasya. So that he's got 6 opulences in full, which is strength and beauty and renunciation, fame, richness, all this money, all this wealth. So Krishna has 6 opulences in full, and so therefore he is all attractive. So by reflection, if somebody has a little bit of fame in this world or a little bit of wealth, we find them attractive too. And so, if we find this attractive, then how much more attractive is the Lord, and how much more attractive is the spiritual world, where there is not one goddess of fortune but thousands, as described in the Brahma Samhita. Okay, then the last point made in this purport is basically about creation and where the planets are. So I'll just explain it really quickly. So there's this whole blank canvas, which is the spiritual sky. And in one corner of the spiritual sky, it's like a cloud is there. 1/4 of that spiritual sky has got a material cloud. That's material creation. And the other 3/4 is still the spiritual sky. And then in this material creation, which takes up 1/4 of creation, in that material cloud, there are the material planets, which range from hell to earth to heaven to Brahmaloka. So even Brahmaloka, also known as Satyaloka, is in this material creation. So Brahmaloka is the highest planet in material creation. And then above Brahmaloka, above material creation then, is the Viraja river. And this river separates the material creation from the spiritual creation. Above the Viraja river, just above it, is Lord Shiva's abode. So Lord Shiva is in between the material and the spiritual worlds. So then above Lord Shiva's abode comes the Vaikuntha planets. So because the Vaikuntha planets are sitting like that right on top, and then above Vaikuntha is Goloka Vrindavan. So this is like how the whole thing is from bottom to top. And here in this purport, how it is explained is that because Vaikuntha is sitting on top of the entire material creation, it's being called the summit. It appeared, so is the summit of all heavenly planets, because it is sitting on top of heaven and on top of Brahmaloka, and then even on top of the Viraja river and Shiva Loka. So then on top of that is Goloka Vrindavan. And then of course we know that in material creation there is, we need electricity, and we need the sun and the moon for lightness, to give us light. But in the spiritual creation, it's self-illumined. There is no need for the sun or the moon or electricity. And that's because of the brightness, the bodily effulgence coming from Krishna's body, which lights up the entire spiritual sky. So there were a lot of points covered in this purport, ranging from offenses to the planetary order, and the Lord's mood in being equal to everyone. So I just want to go back to the Lord's mood in being equal to everyone, and again just try to say something about it, because personally for me, I'm pretty critical and judgmental, and if something's going wrong, I want immediate justice, and I'm quite intolerant. That's just me. Like if somebody's doing something wrong, it's like, okay, go to jail right now. So, and then when it's not happening, then I kind of become critical and say, well, the police aren't doing their job, the management is terrible, they're not doing their job, and So Krishna, on the other hand, like he's very, very tolerant and gives time to reform. So for me, it's a little hard to, to try to, warm up to that. So what I want to say is, the other way I understand it a bit is, to try to get the philosophical understanding helps in our spiritual lives and helps us to develop qualities of tolerance and compassion as well. So, so for myself, what I like, there's a story that, Krishna's standing there, and then people are coming and praying to him, and a thief comes and prays to him and says, I'm going to pull off this robbery tonight, you've got to help me, I really want to be successful, got to steal all of these things. And, so he's really begging, and then, at the same time, the owner of the house is coming along and saying, Krishna, I'm going away on a vacation, and please protect my house and look after the contents and everything. So then Krishna's, whose prayer does he answer? Of course, the morality part of it comes in there. But then when we start thinking like that yes, everybody is still a person, and everybody still has desires, good and bad, and everybody is at a different stage of becoming purified. It's being described that, the material world is like a shower, and we are all in line waiting to have a shower, and some of us have showered and moved on, and some of us are, not so dirty standing in line, but we are all sort of trying to get purified. And according to how much anarthas and how many negative, unfavorable things we have, our purification might take longer and longer. And so from Krishna's point of view, like he can see everything, not just this life, but previous lives as well. And so he can, so instead of becoming judgmental, like personally, what we need to try to be doing is letting Krishna be the judge, and ourselves just, acting in our position that we might have. So obviously, if we have a position, like a parent or a teacher or a king or a manager, so if we are in a position, then we need to do what our duty is at that point in time, because Krishna has given us these rights that, okay, we are in a position, we actually can send this person to jail or give them a punishment. But if we are not in that position, then we need to try to be compassionate, be tolerant, and let Krishna be the judge. And for ourselves, just do what we have the right and authority. Like there's a circle of influence. So do what we can do and leave the rest to Krishna, and don't get stressed about it, basically. So there's of course the serenity prayer which comes in as well, which is I can only do what I can do, and the rest is up to the Lord. So so that's one way of understanding it a bit. And okay, I'll stop there. There's lots of very, very advanced devotees in the audience, so if anybody would like to add anything or has any questions. Sure.
You said about Vaishnava Parad and how it is destroying our devotional bhakti. And I was wondering, because in the Bhagavad Gita there is a verse that goes Neha Vikramana Shosti Pratapa Naya Virate Svarpasha Apasha 자, 트라테 마하토바야. So even little credit can save us from the most dangerous type of fear. And also Krishna reserves our whatever we perform, whatever bhakti we perform, he preserves as well. So how is it a part of Vaishnava really destroy all our credit, or Krishna kind of save us little credit we created?
So for other offenses, there is that verse applies. But for Vaishnava aparad, it is the most severe offense. And for that offense, therefore, is particularly emphasized many times, that it's got the power to destroy all our spiritual merit and make us forget Krishna. So Vaishnava aparad, therefore, we need to be particularly careful of that one. So in terms of, yes, Krishna preserving, of course, the Bhagavad Gita verse is still applicable, but Krishna delivers it. It doesn't get false. It's not false what that verse is saying at all. It still holds. How Krishna does it, though, is different to what we might expect. So in that, he is going to still preserve what we have. However, it might not be apparent for a very, very long time. And then it will only become apparent when the time is right. For example, we are all spirit souls. We all have eternity and bliss and knowledge in us completely as spirit souls. But when we come to this material world, we forget all of that. We get covered over, and the ignorance covers us, and we forget all of that. So then we have to try to link back up with the Supreme, and we do that by chanting and devotional service. So when we do that, then slowly, the clearing happens, and we start remembering, and we can experience the bliss, and the knowledge comes. So spiritual knowledge, also it's not really by just studying and writing it that it comes. It gets revealed in the heart by Krishna. And then Krishna gives the right words at the right time, and then, like that. So, however, we've forgotten. Like before we became devotees, we've forgotten. So in the same way, he does preserve what we have. He's preserved the soul. He's preserved that knowledge and the bliss and everything in the soul, even coming from so high up to here, it's all still preserved. But it's not apparent. It's not visible. We can't really experience it. So in the same way, if there has been an offense, it can take a while for the good to come through. So that verse is also used when at the time of death, that whatever good I have done, it is, and whatever spiritual merit I have that I must have forgotten, but Krishna has remembered that, and he has preserved that, and that it will bear fruit when at the time of death. So, I hope that explains it a bit. Would anybody like to add anything? Yeah. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you for a very comprehensive class. It was very jam-packed. One thing, just on this point of offences, Sachimata didn't know that she had caused an offence, so she had to be told, you've caused an offence against Advaita Acharya. So in our life, we unknowingly commit a lot of offences because we're in so much ignorance. What is the duty of someone if they see that a devotee has committed an offence, but they're not aware of them committing offence, whether it's a younger devotee or an older devotee or an intermediate devotee? Should they confront the devotee and say, Prabhu, you've committed an offence? If so, where does that stop? Because you can also, because we're all of us full of offences, how would you deal with that?
Thank you, Prabhu, for the question. I will try to answer to the best of my knowledge. And so my understanding is that there's Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam devotees, different levels, neophyte and all of that. So, and that according to the level of a devotee, we are supposed to have that kind of relationship with them, that if they are junior to us and we are so-called more senior, either in years or years of devotional service or in age, that we can correct kanishtas who are on a lower level of devotional service or younger in years, that we actually should be correcting, and gently so, and then there's the right method of delivering it. And that if they are Madhyam Adhikaris and we are supposed to be friends with them, we make friends with people at the same level as us, we as friends also can put in a word of advice. And if they are senior to us, then what we are supposed to do is go to somebody who is at the same level and tell them, this is what I noticed, I think this is wrong, and you know what needs to be done. So then leaving it in the hands of somebody who is at the same level and who can deal with that. That's my understanding of it. At the same time, like, you know, we are all faced with situations all the time, such as, you know, children being hurt. And what do we do then? Like, just very practically, I was walking in a supermarket in Kmart the other day, and a mother was hitting her daughter at the checkout counter. And, you know, that was very painful. So I actually intervened and talked to them. You know, in hindsight, I mean, so something like that. So it's all like, what do I do? Do I leave this to the police? Do I leave it to the shop? Do I do something? So it's all very confusing. And then when you bring it into the devotee sphere, it's even like, oh, I don't want to offend this devotee. What do I do? So it's really like something that can be explored and explained, and it has been the subject of discussion. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains things very nicely in his books. My limited understanding of it is, you know, what I said earlier. But overall, like, we all have a moral compass, and society is supposed to be the mirror that, you know, is supposed to be the mirror. And what a mirror does, it gives that reflection. So only when we see our reflection can we fix up our tilak, fix up what we look like. So society is supposed to reflect. So what happens is sometimes we can tend to go too far the other end and say, oh, I'm not in a position, I'm not going to say anything, I don't want to rock the boat, all of that. So instead of that, you know, we all need to have a natural, like, what is our heart saying? What is our moral compass saying? What am I supposed to do? Like, you know, if it doesn't sit right, then we actually need to take some action and find out the right way of doing it. So when we are trying to correct somebody, as we know, the way we are supposed to do it is satya priya hitam. So if we are too abrasive in the way we speak, they'll get hurt and they won't actually take the good out of it, take the benefit out of it. So we're supposed to say it according to that person's psychophysical nature. So say there's somebody who can only understand if you are angry, who can only understand anger. Then you'd have to, you know, put on some anger and say, do this, I told you to do this, or this is what you're supposed to do. And then the penny will drop. Oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. So whereas somebody else who's sensitive will not respond to anger. So somebody who knows the psychophysical nature and who is in a position to be objective, or even not objective, but somebody needs to be able to say those things. What happens nowadays is that nobody says anything because of different reasons, and then you know, things can go on for a long time, and the person doesn't realize, like we don't realize that we've been doing bad things for a long time, or being offensive. because the usual mirror of society hasn't reflected back, because everybody's just minding their own business, not wanting to take any action or show any reaction. So healthy reaction is important, is very important, because otherwise what ends up happening is, say I've seen something bad happening and I haven't taken any action and it's just sitting within me and bothering me, then I end up sick. I end up stressed and unwell. So we actually need to have a healthy reaction, but in a conducive and productive and beneficial way, rather than in a way that's going to cause more harm. Would you like to elaborate on that, Prabhu? Anything?
Sometimes it can be seen that the person can.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's like sometimes there are people that will point out every single fault that you've done or any offence that you've done, and that can also be really detrimental to your spiritual life because you just don't take it seriously. So there has to be a practicality as far as how much you can actually, and like you say, be very sensitive in that area and approach it in a way that is going to be conducive. But sometimes even that can be difficult when the person you were talking about, Majjhimadhikari and so on, when a person is on a higher status than you, and you see definitely that the activity that that person is doing is offensive to another devotee, you say go to somebody of the same caliber, but sometimes that's also difficult. So there are difficulties in that. And again, as you say, with sensitivity, and by the Lord's mercy, we sort of overcome these things. But it's something that's there that we have to work on. You know?
And in that situation also, like I personally have been in situations where seniors have been very blatantly wrong, which in my opinion has been wrong, and in the perspective of the world would be wrong. So, and there has not been any equivalent around to go and say, can you fix this up in your God brother? So I have had to say something. And also the Vaishnava etiquette is that if you are trying to correct somebody, you do it privately, so behind a closed door, so that there's not a whole audience, whereas if you're trying to praise somebody, you do it publicly. So I've had to be in a position where I've had to say something to a senior, and did it in a just not in a like hard way, in a authoritarian way, but just like, I think this is wrong, and this is my opinion, so if you want to, what do you think, sort of thing, in a very sort of humble way. So yes, it's a difficult situation overall. Thank you very much for your association. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.